Welcome to the Fantasy Football News Week 12 edition. I think I put Week 13 in the title, and I will have to change that later, but it is the Week 12 edition. I am as always your host, Eric, and I welcome you and thank you for watching this week. We have plenty of things to cover this week, so we will jump right into it, I think. And I want to say something right off the top, just in case, because when I do these lives, there's a chat window that opens for YouTube Live, and when I'm looking at it in my studio suite here, I have a little chat thing and things pop up. And when I'm doing these live, I do them public, and so anybody can join in and start asking questions. And I invariably get a bunch of fantasy football related questions like, who should I trade and who should I start? And I shouldn't say a bunch, like 4 or 5 per video. And I'm not really interested in answering those questions. I mean, I'm not the fantasy football guru that is going to answer those questions for everybody, so I'm just going to type in my chat thing here that this broadcast is intended for you folks that know who I am, and for the leagues, the 3 leagues that I participate in, I participate in 4, but for the 3 leagues that I do this broadcast for, and that chat will not be answered. Not be answered. So that people know that I'm not going to be responding to chat. If at any point in time anybody wants to join me for the live videos, you are more than welcome. I'm sure I could set something up. Either you come here, or we could set something up over a Zoom or whatever. Again, any participation would be appreciated. If you want to submit an audio or video piece, or even something in writing, or a web page, or anything that you'd like me to share here on the Fantasy Football News, I would be happy to do that for you, my loyal watchers. Let us get on now to the news, and we're going to start this week with the Outcast League, even though I don't have that window set up. Let me go switch it real quick before I transition over there. Going to start with the Outcast League. Let us hit that transition, and this week I'm going to hit it right. Boom, there I am. Hey, I'm way down here in the corner. It's little Eric. Hey, my voice gets really high when I'm small and in the corner. That doesn't really happen, folks. My voice is normal. I swear to it. Gosh almighty, did I think I did. I did. Okay. So, as you can see, we're now in the live scoring window, and I'm going to switch over to my other one so I can see what's going on. But our first matchup, as you can see, is Rebel Scum versus Show Me Your Kittles. Rebel Scum handily wins this match 116.60 to 90.10, largely because Show Me Your Kittles decides to play Russell Wilson instead of Jared Goff at quarterback. Although starting Jared Goff would not have netted him the points needed to win the matchup. If I do the math quickly in my head, 90 minus 11 takes him down to 80, 79, then plus the 24. Yeah, he still doesn't get up to the 116 mark that he would have needed to win. And nobody else on his roster, I don't believe he had the points on his roster to beat me. Geno Smith had a decent game. I didn't have anybody else on my roster that was going to beat that with Justin Fields out with the shoulder injury that he suffered at the end of last week's game. Miles Sanders with a great game, 29.5 points for me. My wide receiver core, if I'm starting Darius Slayton, you know that I am in trouble. I probably could have had Zay Jones in there. Would have been helpful, would have given me even more, and Mac Hollins had a great game against the Seahawks. If you watched that Seahawks-Raiders game, I'm not sure what was going on. I felt like maybe Josh Jacobs was John Cena out there. Like nobody could see him. Just nobody could see Josh Jacobs. At least none of the Seahawks could. Dude was invisible to the Seahawks defense. Just an absolutely horrible game for them. So Josh Jacobs ran all over him, but no outcome. None of that mattered to me as Rebel Scum was able to win this one. And this brings me to an issue that many fans wrote in about. Now, we here at Fantasy Football News try to remain as unbiased as possible. I personally don't. I am a team owner in all of the leagues that are mentioned on the show. But I as a broadcaster, I'm a Walter Cronkite type. I remain as professional and unbiased as I possibly can while I'm doing these broadcasts. But fans do send in emails and things of that nature, and one was particularly poignant this week, as one of our league members here in the Outcast League does a power ranking for this league, and I guess one of the fans must have seen it and wanted to send in a response to those power rankings, and I thought it was an interesting response, and so I'm going to play that response. It's a song response here on the air. It's going to take me just a moment to fire that up. Let's get that set up and transition over now. And why aren't you going? There it is.
You know that my rank is untrue, that Rob is a poor classifier. If it tries to say to you, Rebel Scum will never rise much higher, the power rankings are a dumpster fire. The power rankings are a dumpster fire. Time to set the league on fire. Show me your Kittles got ran through. I'm sure this list must be satire. Timinators are just trying to lose, but on Rebel Scum Rob chose to open fire. Power rankings are a dumpster fire. The power rankings are a dumpster fire. Time to set the league on fire, yeah.
Turn my mic back on. Alrighty then. I hope that audio came through cleanly. If it seemed like I was bopping my head out of rhythm, that is because for some reason that's one bug I still haven't fixed. I can't get my audio to come through, my output audio on those segments to come through in my headphones, so I just have to hope that it's going out live. It looked like it was on my monitor. But yeah, so that was sent in by a fan that obviously believes the power rankings may be fixed in some way. Again, totally unbiased reporting here. I don't know about that. That's out of my purview, as it were. But we will move along on to Stars and Stripes versus the Ballhawks, and this matchup was a closely contested one that I believe came down to Monday night. As Stars and Stripes had Michael Pittman Jr. that needed to score those points to put them over the top. Stars and Stripes was trailing going into Monday night by several points, and Pittman with a 15.6, which he didn't really come on in that game until the second half, and so it was probably a little bit of sweat dripping there for Stars and Stripes, but he was able to pull out that win against the Ballhawks. Who had Tua starting, and Tua was a bit of a low scorer comparatively this week. And we can see also the other issue here, CMAC put up only 6.9 on 32 rushing yards, 17 receiving yards, so that was a problem. Rashad White with 15.4. The Baltimore defense with 6. Now Aaron Rodgers 15. Zeke with 16 right there. Might have gotten the points that he needed. So all around we see... Oh, and let's actually... I forget to do this every week. Rebel Scum next week will be taking on the Ball Hawks. And Show Me Your Kittles will be moving on to play Mongo Mentality. In this matchup, Stars and Stripes next week will be moving on against Timinators, while the Ball Hawks will face Rebel Scum. So moving on now, our next matchup, Timinators versus Team Sesh. Team Sesh, obviously our favorite right now to win out. A very close matchup here. Surprisingly, as Joe Burrow gets the start over Justin Herbert, and that could have been the ball game, but instead, Team Sesh pulls this one out, 106.9 to 97.8. On the back of Patrick Mahomes, Nick Chubb, who, like I said, despite these numbers, that one rushing TD came in overtime. And so his numbers were a bit inflated in overtime. I believe that the majority of I won't say the majority, but a lot of those points didn't come until overtime. Ayuk, we got Tyler Bass, 11.2. Denver's defense, which has been good, decided not to be as good this time as they allow Carolina to put up 23 points. Although Russell Wilson did manage a touchdown in this game, putting his total, I believe, to 8 on the season. Moving on, oh wait, nope, you know what, I'm not going to forget this time. Timinators will be moving on to face Stars and Stripes next week, while Team Sesh moves on to face Randall Access Memories. Speaking of Randall Access Memories, they took on Amy's last year's champion Saints for Life team, and thoroughly beat them down, 142.75 to 93.40. Amy decides to start Jimmy G at quarterback, 17.5, and some interesting questions happening there in San Francisco as what happens with the way San Francisco's playing. What happens if Jimmy G gets them to another Super Bowl? What do you do? What do you do then? Travis Etienne, 0.3 points on 3 rushing yards, as Baltimore wins that one by a point on a 2-point try. A 2-point try to win that game. Very, very gutsy call. Good for them. Amon-Ra St. Brown gets 23.4 points for Amy, but still just not enough to overcome the 36.45-point effort by Josh Allen. And here's the Josh Jacobs effort I was talking about that nets him 45.3 points, 229 rushing yards, 2 rushing TDs, 74 receiving yards on 6 receptions. The guy was just a monster. He was invisible. The Seahawks could do absolutely nothing to stop him, and on top of that, could not get nothing going on the ground. The Seahawks offense looked okay. Geno looked decent. We had some good offense going. We still put up 30-something points. We just couldn't do anything against their run game. Our rushing attack, Ken Walker, I think he had 26 yards on like 14 carries or something. Just a horrible effort by the Seahawks. But back to fantasy, Isaiah Pacheco, a good start there in the flex spot with 15 points. Just not a whole lot happening on defense in this game. 3 from the New England team defense. What did we have down here? Tom Brady and Derek Carr on benches with 24.5 points and 29.75 points. Now, if you'll remember, Derek Carr used to be part of my team, and I kicked him to the curb because he just wasn't doing it for me. I paid him a whole bunch of money, but luckily somebody else picked up that portion of that contract at least. Randall Access Memories will be moving on to face Team Sesh, while Saints for Life will be playing the fantasy football team next week. And the fantasy football team is the subject of our next matchup, as they took on Mongo Mentality, who soundly defeated them with Lamar Jackson. Samaje Perine, I think it's Samaje, I don't know how to say some of these names. I should have done my homework. Justin Jefferson with a Justin Jefferson-like performance at 24.95 points. 10 by the Buffalo defense. Able to overcome Trevor Lawrence's 34.15 points. And the funny thing is, look at this matchup right here. Trevor Lawrence and Lamar Jackson, if you'll remember at the beginning of the season when I took over Rebel Scum as a team owner, were both on my roster, and yet here they are matching up against each other in this matchup. And that was the beginning of the blowing up. I think that was... Now, Lamar was one of the later trades I made, but Trevor was one of the early trades that I made, and that was the beginning of the blowing up of the Rebel Scum roster, which I'm rebuilding. I'm rebuilding, folks. We'll get there. You will see. You will see. The fantasy football team, again, just not able to get anything done against Mongo Mentality, who has been running roughshod over the division, and just unable to... nobody in our division is able to get anything done against Mongo Mentality. So Mongo Mentality will be moving on to take on Show Me Your Kittles, and the fantasy football team will be taking on Saints for Life. That will do it for the Outcast League. Those of you that would like to stick around are welcome to. In the Outcast League, we do have an appearance by Bockety later on in the broadcast. But for now, we will be moving on to the Op Soup League. And here we go. Get out of here with that. Our first matchup, I need to get to my box scores. Why am I on my thing when I should be in the box scoreboard? Here we go, and week 12, and box scores. So I'm going to come back to this match because I believe this might have been the matchup of the week and possibly even the season. Let's start at the end and work our way the other way. The Sandlot Turf Burns versus Team Scott Scott. What else can I say about this matchup? Third and fourth in the South Division, respectively. We've got Team Scott Scott, who just barely manages the loss with Mike Williams, who was a known injury, still on the roster. Sandlot Turf Burns starts Derek Carr with Russell Wilson on the bench, and 26.8 points there. 20 from James Conner, 16 from Adam Thielen, and 19.3 from Isaiah McKenzie. Still starting Cordero Patterson, and you remember last year, Cordero was an excellent off the bench or off the waiver wire pickup for the Sandlot Turf Burns. But they manage a rare win for the Sandlot Turf Burns here in Week 12 as they pick up this one, 129.46 to 116.98. And let me get my thing set up here for next week. The Sandlot Turf Burns will be taking on the generic football team, while Team Scott Scott moves on to face Don't Remember Didn't Happen. Our next matchup was Team 1051 versus Stars and Stripes, and Team 1051 just absolutely mauled the entire... If we were playing a everybody against everybody league, I think Team 1051 might have had a much better season than their record shows, because they've put up some big points in a few weeks here. 163.46 to 141.66. They win this one, largely on the back of Justin Jefferson and Miles Sanders, who provided 55.34 points just between the two of them. Jared Goff at 21.6 and Daniel Jones at 16.52. DJ Moore there. And not a whole lot of points left on the bench. Only 3.7 points left on his bench, which means he had a huge efficiency rating right there. He could not have possibly, from the players he had, put more points up on his roster. On the other side, not a whole bunch of points left sitting on Stars and Stripes bench. Possibly could have put Lazard in over Dalton Schultz or something, but it wasn't going to make a whole lot of difference as he loses this one by a whopping 22 points. That one's got to hurt Stars and Stripes, as he was hoping with a win by him and a loss by me would have put him a little closer to snagging that division title away from me. But luckily, I was able to hold on to that through Week 12. We will see what the next week brings. Team 1051 will move on to place Black Ops MC next week, while Stars and Stripes moves on against Rebel Scum. And that will be the match where maybe Stars and Stripes can move up another game on me. Our next matchup, 12th Man Mafia versus Don't Remember Didn't Happen. And I tell you what, for getting the first pick in this year's draft, things were looking up real early for 12th Man Mafia. I believe Veronica got some wins very early, and unfortunately just has not been able to get a whole lot put together after that. Still some great games from Josh Allen, but the rest of the roster just not supporting her at all. Kadarius Toney manages a goose egg along with Darnell Mooney. Meanwhile, you've got some points that were sitting down here that could have been up there in slots. Don't Remember Didn't Happen, second in the South Division. He's likely going to hit that playoff spot. Jimmy G, a good start for him. Kirk Cousins, 23.9 for Amon-Ra St. Brown. So he's going to take this one. And let's see here. 12th Man Mafia is taking on Garbage Time next week, while Don't Remember Didn't Happen is taking on Team Scott. Our second to the last matchup, Black Ops MC versus Garbage Time. And Garbage Time squeaks this one out in a low-scoring affair here, 98.66 to 86.2, largely as Black Ops MC decides to start a injured Justin Fields, and out Justin Fields in the quarterback slot. And Kenyon Drake manages 0.2 points in the flex position. Now, again, Matthew Stafford was also injured, and so there wasn't a whole lot to be done there. As far as picking up a quarterback, there were some on the bench, or on the waiver wire. I'm sure we could have maybe slid in there. Tua gets 17.96, Aaron Rodgers 13.5. Lackluster efforts across the board on the Garbage Time side, but still enough to get the win out for Garbage Time, who is hoping with this win that maybe another team falters, and we'll take a look at the playoff standings here in just a little bit, is hoping that maybe with stringing together some end-of-season wins and maybe a couple of losses by some other teams, he could squeak his way into a playoff berth. We shall see. So our final match here in the in the Op Soup League was Generic Football Team versus Rebel Scum. And this one, I tell you what, folks, it was a barn burner. It came right down to it on Monday night, as I was ahead by 12 points, just a little under 12 points headed into Monday night. And Randy had George Pickens here and Michael Pittman to go. And the first half of that game, they were doing nothing. Those two guys were doing nothing. Pickens couldn't get his hands on anything. Pittman couldn't get anything going. There was just nothing happening, and I was happier than a clam. I was like, all right, man, I might still have a shot at this. But alas, the second half saw Pittman start grabbing some balls. He managed a touchdown, and I think Pickens might have got himself a touchdown too. If not, he did snag a few balls, and unfortunately was able to put Randy over the top. And that was also some decisions by me, some late decisions. I literally turned on the Seahawks game and had, I believe, I turned it on, and they had just like introduced the broadcasters and went to commercial, so they're going to come back from commercial and do the kickoff, right? So I have like a minute, maybe 2 minutes to make switches before the game starts, and I had Justin Herbert in that starting slot. And I was like, you know what? Screw it. I'm putting Geno in. I'm going to ride or die with my Seahawks. I already had Walker and Lockett in. I said, screw it. I'm putting Geno in. I just had a feeling he was gonna go off on the Raiders. And he did not. I mean, 23-8-2 is, I mean, that's an okay effort, but that, I mean, I left, what did I leave? 11 points right there on the bench. And couple that with the Nick Chubb here, who put up 20 points. And again, a lot of these were overtime points, 20 points. And you may look and say, well, how do you start Justin Jefferson over Nick Chubb? And again, I was looking at matchups, and I'm looking at the fact that I'm playing the generic football team. I'm trying to knock this guy out. He's 11-1. He's on he was 10-1 at the time. He's on a 10-game winning streak since week 1. I'm trying to knock this guy out. I'm first in my division, but I'm 9-2 at the time, and I want to knock this dude out. I want to go on. I want to win, and I want to beat this guy up a little bit. And kind of show that I'm the power in this league, not him. And so I'm trying to look for some advantages. So I'm playing a matchup, and Jeff Wilson Jr. had a fantastic matchup against Houston. Houston has the 32nd rated rush defense. So this guy had the capability to just absolutely run all over these guys. And Tampa Bay has the second ranked rush defense. So the opportunity, the ceiling, the high mark for Jeff Wilson, I felt was much higher than it was for Nick Chubb. But that didn't pan out for me. It was a decision that just didn't pan out, and those kind of things happen. Those are the kind of decisions that can make or break your fantasy football season. And you know what else doesn't help? Mike Evans doesn't help. Mike Evans never helps lately. He has been my wide receiver 1, and he's been a bad one at that. I don't know what the deal is in Tampa, but Brady has all but stopped looking at Mike Evans for touchdown passes. So I don't know what I'm going to do there, because my backups down here, Brandon Cooks, Deontay Johnson, and Jerry Jeudy, I am just not looking good at wide receiver. That's been my weakness all season. I've had a decent running back core with Dalvin Cook and with Nick Chubb. It's just my wide receivers have been letting me down all season. So Rebel Scum loses this one, 120.06 to 107.02. So let's take a look real quick at our standings. That leaves me at 9-3-0, but still first place in the North Division and 2 games ahead of Stars and Stripes. And Generic Football Team currently in first place in the South Division and 2 games ahead of Don't Remember Didn't Happen. Currently, Garbage, I don't know what I was thinking. Garbage Time is currently locked into a playoff berth at 6-6. And Team Scott currently has that other playoff position locked up at 5-7. The team I was thinking about here instead of Garbage Time was Team 1051. Team 1051 needs to string together a couple more wins and hope for some Team Scott losses to try and get that 6th playoff spot locked up. And if we look at the playoff bracket as it stands right now, Generic Football Team gets the bye for the sake of winning their division, and Rebel Scum gets the bye for the sake of winning their division, while currently Stars and Stripes would face off against Garbage Time, and Don't Remember Didn't Happen would face off against Team Scott. While the Consolation Ladder would feature the Sandlot Turf Burns versus, and actually the Consolation Ladder doesn't necessarily work this way. We do a 3-week total score playoff for what we call the Toilet Bowl. So your scores for the 3 weeks would be added up to determine who the best of the worst is. So that is what our standings look like here in the Op Soup League, and that is going to bring us to a little-known feature called Bockety. Bring it on, Bockety.
I'm Bockety. I'm here to tell you who laid an egg. Had Rob produced a power rankings list that made any sense whatsoever, he might have earned the respect and adoration of the Outcast League. Instead, as we have heard, he created a dumpster fire. Rob, Bock, laid an egg. If Timinators starts Justin Herbert over Joe Burrow, he adds another loss to first place Jake and Team Sesh. But instead, Bock, Tim laid an egg. Had Amy spent her time studying her entire roster instead of posting responses about weeks old tight end controversies on Facebook, she might have been able to put together a lineup that defeats Randall Access Memories. Instead, Amy, laid an egg. Had Power Rankings wizard Rob started his salary cap monster Ezekiel Elliott instead of C-Mac, he wins his matchup against Stars and Stripes. Instead, Rob lays yet another egg and likely will not lose any spots on his farcical Power Rankings. Had Helen started DeAndre Hopkins instead of Mike Williams, who was sidelined with a known ankle injury, she would have won her matchup against the Turf Burns. Helen laid an egg. Rebel Scum made a literal last-minute decision to start Geno Smith over Justin Herbert. In addition, he chose to play the matchup of Jeff Wilson against the 32nd ranked run defense of the Houston Texans instead of Nick Chubb, whose only score was an overtime touchdown. These two moves cost Eric the match and a chance to end the 11-game undefeated streak of the generic football team. Eric laid the golden egg. The golden egg? Look at that, folks. It's a golden egg. Wow. Eric laid the golden egg of the season. That's all for Bakity this season. Look to be back next season, folks, and have a good one.
Oh my goodness. I just realized my mic has been off this whole time as I've been talking about this league. Hopefully you got the gist of what I was saying. What a horrible, horrible train wreck of an ending of a video that was. Oh well, I'm not going to go back and talk about this. I think you all saw what I was getting at. Anyways, other than good luck to everybody but Randy. In this league, I will have my revenge on you. In this league, if I can. So that will do it for the fantasy football news. Onward and upward. Have a great week. Goodbye.